Our clients buy, sell, and invest in businesses across a wide range of jurisdictions and sectors. These clients are typically private equity, growth funds, family businesses, and strategics. And the single biggest challenge that they faced in 2022 was the obtaining of regulatory approvals in terms of trying to close their transactions. These approvals are typically a precondition to closing and therefore impose a gap between signing and closing of the transaction. And this in and of itself raises some level of uncertainty around the deal. And the question arises then is, who bears the risk for the business between signing and closing? How is that risk legislated for? And what is the outcome if the regulatory approval is not forthcoming before closing? In 2019, the EU published the screening regulation, which sets out a minimum set of requirements for foreign direct investment across EU member states, and many European countries have already implemented that into their local laws. Ireland is a little behind the game and just issued its bill in August 2020, and this bill will introduce Ireland's first screening investment regime for foreign direct investment. So in a few simple words, we should expect continued and increased regulatory scrutiny of deals in 2023. The single biggest piece of legislation that we're facing for 2023 is the screening of third countries transaction legislation. This is likely to be enacted into law next year, and every single transaction that takes place will have to be evaluated as to whether or not it should be notified to the Minister for Enterprise, Trade and Employment. The department are currently setting up a unit to deal with these notifications. So a notification will need to take place if the deal size is more than 2 million, if the nature of the activity is one that is strategic and sensitive, and this will include areas like critical technology, critical inputs, critical infrastructure, access to sensitive information, and media. Also, the thresholds must be either 25 or 50% in terms of shareholding or voting rights. And finally, the activity must be conducted in the state. This is a very significant development for Irish M&A and investment activity. It will make deals more complex. It will add to the deal mechanics, and it is also likely to add to the length of time in some cases that it takes to do a deal. Also, there will be criminal sanctions for failure to comply with the legislation, and the Minister will have the power to prohibit transactions and apply remedies such as divestiture. I'd just like to mention the new and very wide-sweeping powers that the Commission for Competition and Consumer Protection will have under the new Competition Act of 2022. That's the Amendment Act. And there are 4 powers in particular which I'd like to refer to that the Commission has. So the first is the power to call in below the merger thresholds, where they anticipate that there will be a distortion in the market in terms of goods or services. Secondly is the power to impose interim measures. Thirdly is the power to commence proceedings for gun jumping. And finally, it's the power to unwind transactions such as mergers or acquisitions that have actually completed. And these are obviously very, very wide powers. So at the start of any transaction, it's going to be incumbent on us as lawyers and businesses to analyze the nature of the particular transaction and work out whether, in fact, it might be wise to make a voluntary notification if we think there's going to be a diminution in competition in the market. Secondly, we'll have to be extra vigilant in terms of M&A and investment activity, as we have been in 2022, in terms of the various sanctions regimes that have arisen out of the war in Ukraine. Both lawyers and businesses need to be careful that they don't infringe those sanction regimes. So just a quick word on the market. I'm predicting that for the first half of 2023, it will continue to be a somewhat bumpy, uneven ride in terms of deal flow. But being optimistic, I think things will return to a more normal level of deal flow in the second half of 2023.